Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be changing out a U-joint on the front axle of my Cherokee here. If you're new here, welcome to my channel and don't forget to subscribe. You want to make sure you use a 12-point socket because your 6-point just ain't going to work. So my Cherokee's been making noises here in the front end and I'm pretty sure that I've got a bad U-joint. So I went to my local auto parts store and picked up this U-joint. It was about $15, not too expensive. They are different than the U-joints that you will find in your drive shaft. The way that they're different is the way the clips work. Now on your drive shaft, the clips will be on the outside, and on your U-joint for your front axle, they'll be on the inside. This one here is a non-greasable one. Greasable ones are great, but let's be honest, once I put it in here, chances are I'm never gonna grease it. It's also kind of a hard place to get to be able to grease it, so I highly recommend a non-greasable U-joint. It's got grease packed in here already from the factory. If it does not, you will want to pull your caps off and put some grease on there before you install it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this on a jack stand and we're going to remove our tire. So now that the Spooky Jeep is supported on a jack stand and I removed the tire, the next thing we're going to do is remove our brake caliper. And in order to do that, you're going to have two bolts, one up here and one down here that you want to remove. Now that that's done, you want to tuck it away somewhere. You do not want it to hang from your brake lines. That is really bad. What I normally do is just have a jack or something sitting here that I can set it on. Or you can wrap it up here, and zip tie it to your front springs. Now that our brake caliper is removed, we can go ahead and remove our rotor. The next thing we're going to do is remove our hub and bearing assembly. Now in order to remove this assembly, you actually need to remove the nut that secures it to your axle. And in order to do that, we're going to remove this cotter pin, as well as this cap, and underneath there will be a 36mm nut. So you never want to reuse these cotter pins, you always want to make sure that you replace them. Now this nut comes off pretty easy with an impact, but you can do the same thing with an eye-sized breaker bar. It just might take a little more effort. So now that we removed our axle shaft from our hub assembly, we're going to go ahead and remove the 3 bolts that hold the hub to the steering knuckle. They're a 13mm 12-point socket. If you have trouble accessing any of the bolts for the hub assembly, you can always turn your steering wheel to the left or the right. It'll give you more access. So I've recently had to replace my hub assembly, but if you're not lucky like that, it might be a bear to get off. Now you can try to wedge things behind it, but all you're going to do is hurt your mating surface. You can try to spray some penetrant in there and tap it off with a hammer very carefully. If you're not careful, you might ruin it. What I did the last time I needed to remove it was I just beat it with a sledgehammer. It ruined it, it made it loose, but I had a new one ready to go on anyway. Now when you remove your hub assembly, you want to take note of how this backing plate is sitting because it will only go back on one way. Now that we've taken care of that, you should just be able to slide the axle shaft out. Beautiful. Now that my axle shaft is out, I got it chucked up here in the vise. And what we're going to do is there's clips inside here and inside here, and we're going to pry those clips out. Now you shouldn't need to reuse these clips, so you can just toss them. Your new one should come with some. I always like to hang on to the old ones in case I ruin one trying to put the new ones in. So now that all our clips are removed, there's a couple of ways we can go about removing. Now that all our clips are removed, there's a couple of ways we can go about removing the U-joint. One of them is the hammer and socket method, and how that works is you get a socket that your U-joint cap will set into, turn it upside down, you set it over it just like so, and then you use your hammer and you give it some good whacks to knock it on through. The way I do it, I bought a shop press and I just like to use the shop press. It works out pretty good. It's really cheap from Harbor Freight and it gets the job done. So the objective is you're going to push your U-joint down through here and out through here, and then you can remove the bearing cap, and then you're going to reverse the process and go the other way and remove the bearing cap, and it will give you enough clearance to actually remove the U-joint. Now, doing this in a press is virtually the same as the hammer and socket method. Same concept, only we're going to be using a press instead of a hammer. A lot less effort on my part. Now that we've punched through, we're going to pull this bearing cap off, and then we can punch it back through the other direction. Wow. So my bearing cap actually broke apart. So apparently my bearing cap was not good because it like disintegrated when I started putting it in the press. That one blew apart too. So now that it's removed, what I like to do is take a wire brush and clean around on the inside the best that I can. I want to make sure that there's no burrs. If we have burrs, what we're going to do is take a little bit of emery cloth and get rid of it. The next thing we're going to do, now that everything is apart, cleaned, I have no burrs, is we're going to go ahead and press it on in. Now how we're going to put this together is we're going to go ahead and remove our bearing caps. You want to be careful not to lose any of the needle bearings inside the cap. So if you drop them, all the needle bearings will bounce out. You have to pick them all up, try to figure out how they go in here, make sure it's nice and clean. You don't want any dirt in here. So we're going to set those aside. We're only going to remove 2 for now. And what we do is we just kind of set it on in here like that, and then set our bearing caps into the outside. Once they're kind of in place good, we're going to go ahead and press them on in. So now that I've got one of them through far enough that I can get a clip on it, I'm going to put the clip on, flip it over, and press the other one the rest of the way on. So now that we've got it mounted to our axle shaft, we can go ahead and pull our other bearing caps. And we're going to repeat the process for the end of the axle. Alright, so we're all installed. You want to make sure that it's moving freely. And now we just got to put it back in. Now that we're all assembled, we can go ahead and slide our axle back in. Now when you're sliding your axle in, you want to make sure that when you push it in, you want to make sure that you lift up on it to clear the inner axle seal. Now that that's done, we want to put our backing plate back on the way it came off, and we can slide our hub assembly on. So with our hub assembly on, we can go ahead and run our bolts in through the back, and you want to make sure to torque these to 75 foot-pounds. So with our hub bolts all tightened down, we want to straighten out our wheel again, and we want to install our axle nut. Now this nut torques to 175 foot-pounds. I don't have a torque wrench that goes that high, so I'm just going to slap it in with a few ugga-duggas and call it good. You want to install your little piece back on and follow that up with a new cotter pin. Now all that's left is to install our caliper. Now the caliper bolts have different specs depending on what years you are. You might want to look them up, but for this one, it's 30 foot-pounds. Here I am trying to install the caliper before the rotor. That would have been funny. Next, you want to put on your rotor. And then your caliper. And that's it. Now all you got to do is reinstall your tire. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. As always, don't forget to subscribe. I won't have any video next week. I hope you have a wonderful time with your families. I know I'm really looking forward to spending some good quality time with mine. Have a Merry Christmas, and thank you for watching. Please do me a favor, check out one of these videos. Got a little subscribe button over there. Click on it. It'll help me out a lot. Oh, looks like a junkyard part. Ladle, 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 ladle.